I keep seeing people say, "Welcome to the New World Order." It's not a joke, people. I just woke up from this dream. I was living in this house, and I had a little pet, and it got outside, and I went to call it back in, and it wouldn't answer me, and it wouldn't come. And this big ass tractor had pulled up in my yard, and it was huge, and it took up the whole yard. And I was afraid my little pet got ran over. And somebody was yelling at me about something from inside, and I couldn't make out what the hell they were saying. It sounded like some kind of a warning or something. And then suddenly the world was just transformed, and my son and I were living in this city. It was almost like we went to some school or something, and it was supposed to be like we were only gonna be there for a little while, and then it was gonna be done and we were gonna go home. But it was like, it was weird, and I was living in this dorm room with a roommate, and it was like I knew him, but I didn't know him, and we had these memories of our life before, as though we were gonna only be there for a while and go back. But it was like those memories were fading, and it was like the whole life before was just fading, and we were stuck in this new place and it was like I was seeing my son sometimes, but we were separated, like we were having separate lives and classes and stuff, and there were these there were sort of like military leaders, but they were like more subdued, or more like teachers like you would have in a college or school. It was just weird, and everybody was living in this, like, I guess, new system. And I was walking down a street, and suddenly they started announcing things, and it was so bizarre. They were like announcing like some kind of weird, it was so weird. It was something about the time. It was like, okay, there were certain times a day when we were supposed to do these weird like ritual things with like meditations or something. It was almost like a worship, except it wasn't. It was like a meditation, and it was just like, and I had my phone, and I was like, maybe I know somebody here, maybe I can reach out to them and find them, because it was like there was no connection between people, there was no more love, there was no more truth. It was just this superficiality. That's all that was left. Just superficiality. It was almost like everybody was people who would go to the gay pride parade, you know? They were just these superficial, empty kind of people. There was no more love. And then this weird person came into my dorm room, and it was like she was in trouble with the law, but the law, it was like they just spit her out of the jail, or just let her go, and then she ended up in my dorm room, and she was freaking weird, and she was like just all up in my space, and like pulling things out of my drawers, but in like the sneaky ways. She was like pretending like she didn't do it, and I don't freaking know. And I was going to try to find help about this girl, see if somebody could take her somewhere else, and then my roommate came back. He was like gone for a while. I was wondering where he went, and he came back, and he had this dresser, and I was just like, I was like so like depressed. And he didn't even notice. He just put up his dresser and was ignoring me, and so I just went to lay down, And I just had this sad, sinking feeling in my heart. Like, what? Where the hell am I? What the hell is going on? I wanted to just go home, but like I said, my memories of home were fading. I didn't know what that meant anymore. There were just no answers to be found. What the hell was going on? It was just like it was all just being built up around us, and before we knew it, there was just no going back. You might be locked down in your home right now. Your kids might be home from school, and you might think, oh man, this sucks. This doesn't suck. You're home with your children. You have a family. You have freedom. You have love in your life, and you take it all for granted. A life where you are totally controlled is not a life. If that's where this is heading, take death before you take this new life. Don't get the mark of the beast. If it comes down to that, you have to get a chip in yourself, or else you won't be able to use money. You take death. Because if it's going to lead us into a world that feels like I just experienced, it's not worth living in, and you'll be trapped there. There will be no way out. And you won't remember the old... I've never had a dream like this before. I've never woken up crying like this before. I don't know what the fuck. Nobody had pets anymore. All the dogs and cats, I don't know where they went. They were just gone. It was kind of like living in military barracks training, except even there was love and connection between people. We just didn't want the drill sergeant to see it, right? There was still humanity left. There was still... But in this place, none of it was left. It was so dry. It was so empty. And yet, people had this, like, superficial, false happiness of, like, doing their jobs, I guess. Like, you know, my roommate came home and he was talking about, oh yeah, I went and I did this and this and this task, handing out some kind of something or other to people, and they told us the new world order, right? They would be successful. And while the government has us on lockdown for the common flu right now, and make no mistake, that's all it is. People die from it every year. Some people get severe cases of it every year. Okay, it's just not shown to us on the news. It is now, just to make us afraid. And what are they saying? What are they telling us? They're urging us to go more digital, no more cash, to do less, you know, paperwork and more everything digital, right? And I keep hearing these little mentions and clues of a digital currency, right? And the government's going to give out stimulus payments. So this is our new universal basic income, perhaps, right? And we're probably only going to be able to get it if we get some kind of an electronic, it might be a card at first, right? A national ID that'll have some kind of chip in it that will handle our money, our digital currency, right? And people are going to take it because they need the money to pay their rent, and they want, food, because they're putting so many people out of work and they're closing so many small businesses. All that's going to be left is corporations and government. And life is just going to get more and more dry and loveless over time. Digital currency, and what else? Vaccines. It's another thing that kills us from the inside. Well, you still have time to research what's really in those. Look up the grandfather of vaccines deposition. Okay, it's long, but the guy goes into all the details of the horrors they put in those things. And the truth about its link to autism and other things, okay? And the truth about all the lies and deception and trickery. At Event 201, the people were talking about how they have to control information. Event 201 was something they held late last year, just before this coronavirus pandemic broke out, right? Bill Gates and some other people went and they held this simulation of a coronavirus pandemic. And they were talking about how if this were to happen, they have to control information. And especially the anti-vaccine movement was gaining a lot of momentum. Apparently they think they have to stop that, right? So what now? Everybody's on lockdown soon. I bet the internet will be extremely censored, right? There won't be a way to pass around truth about vaccines and stuff like that, and the truth about the government and the New World Order. If you haven't learned already, it's going to be too late. And more of the life and the love is going to be sucked out of your life. It's not worth living in a world like that. I'm not saying to commit suicide. No. I'm saying to make the right choice when it comes to you. Don't succumb for the sake of survival. It's not worth living where your soul is deprived of oxygen. There's a lot less people too. In this new world, there was a lot less people. Everyone that was left was tightly controlled. I told you it was almost like being in military training, you're tightly controlled. You have no freedom. Except there, in military training, me and my comrades, we managed to find, we snuck in little opportunities of freedom and fun and happiness, but in this new world, nobody even wanted to. Nobody had even any sense of that anymore. Freedom. I don't know what else to say.